of all the writers and directors to have been associated with a Narnia movie, I don't think any of them have been quite as weird and unexpected as Greta Gerwig, but I also don't think any of them have been as interesting. I mean, compared to Andrew Adamson, who did Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and Prince Caspian, Michael Apted, who did Don Treader, and Joe Johnson, who was attached to a Silver Chair movie that ultimately never panned out. I mean, all three of those directors have made good movies. I like Shrek 2. I like Amazing Grace. I like The Rocketeer. But in my opinion, none of those movies are nearly as good as Lady Bird, which in my opinion is one of the best movies of the past several years. But Narnia, that does seem like a really strange choice. And so for the past several weeks, I've been watching some of her other movies that she's been involved in a writing, directing, or acting capacity, just to kind of try to get a sense of what might we be in store for? Like, what might a Greta Gerwig Narnia movie look like? Is there anything here? Are there any clues we might get looking at her other films? Are there any clues that we can get about something that she might bring to Narnia? Nights and Weekends, which she co-wrote, co-directed, and co-stars in.
We gotta figure out what we're gonna do.
Yeah. I got you a Christmas present.
Is it romantic?
No.
This is about a couple having a long-distance relationship, and whenever they see each other, there's this kind of expectation for how things are going to go, and this realization that one person maybe had slightly different expectations of what they were going to do and what vibe they were going for. It's all shot in this very, camcorder, real kind of way.
Every time that it's not perfect and we haven't seen each other for 3 months, I fix it.
It's going to be good. Whatever happens, it's going to be good.
Cute.
I don't think I really got that into it emotionally, but intellectually, I just thought it had some interesting observations about the pressure to feel something and the pressure in a relationship to, you want those magical things to happen, and sometimes you try to make them happen instead of just letting them happen. So I guess I'm going to give Nights and Weekends a 3.5 out of 5. Frances Ha, which she co-wrote and co-stars in.
We are going to take over the world.
You'll be this awesome publishing mogul.
And you'll be this famous modern dancer.
Greta Gerwig plays a titular Frances Ha. She's a starving artist, a dancer that lives in New York, and she's very close to her roommate, Sophie. And they just kind of have these dreams of, we're always going to be together, and here's what we're going to do, and you're going to write stuff, and I'm going to be in it, and it's going to be awesome. They have these dreams of kind of how their life is going to go. It doesn't go that way. Very quickly, just life gets in the way. Very practical things like money and things just kind of get in the way. And so it's just kind of a series of little vignettes of Frances is trying to just get by, pay the rent, rather than develop her art, which she'd probably prefer to do. And it's structured by address. Occasionally you get a title card, telling you what address she's at next. So it's just kind of about, she moves around from place to place, just trying to get by. Greta Gerwig deserves a huge amount of credit, not just for co-writing the script, but her performance as Frances. I just find her to be very, very appealing, very likable. This is the role that got her a Golden Globe nomination. It all felt very real and honest. The beginning and the end are a little bit feel like a movie, but the rest of it, just kind of felt very real to me. So I really enjoyed the movie. I actually rewatched this one. I enjoyed it so much. I'm going to give it a solid 4 out of 5. Mistress America, which Greta Gerwig co-wrote and co-stars in.
I don't know anyone who lives here.
Yours truly. I got off the bus from Jersey. I thought this was the cool place to live. It's Times Square.
So stylish.
I know. I freelance as an interior decorator. You know the Bowery Hotel?
Oh my God, yeah.
Well, if you walk about a block south, there's a laser hair removal center that's very hip. I did the waiting room.
Nah, wasn't a huge fan of this one. Basically, it's the story of, I think the main character is Tracy, and she's gone to college, and she's bored, so she hooks up with her soon-to-be half-sister, played by Greta Gerwig, and she is a completely different character. She is just this kind of live life and don't think about things and just have no fear, basically. And the movie, to me, was kind of about the pros and the cons of that. You kind of envy the character, how she has no inhibitions and no fear and just does things without thinking and just, I got this idea for a business, I'm just going to do it and throw caution to the wind. And initially you're kind of envying that character, but then you see the other side of it. Oh yeah, she's also in debt. And she's also, maybe she should have thought through things a little bit more. So to me, the movie was kind of about the inhibitions you can have and how fear can hold you back from doing great things. I found just parts of it just kind of grating, and the humor is sometimes, it reminds me a lot of Barbie. I like Barbie better. I'll get to Barbie in a second, but the humor does kind of remind me of Barbie, where It's just the situations are so absurd, but they're largely played straight, and that's what makes them funny. If you don't pick up on that, you're going to hate this movie. So I'm going to give Mistress America a 3 out of 5. Okay, let's talk about Lady Bird.
I want to go where culture is, like
How
New
in the world
York,
did I raise such a
or at least
snob?
Connecticut or New Hampshire, where writers live in the
Get into
woods.
those schools anyway.
Mom,
You should just go to City College. You know, with your work ethic, just go to City College and then to jail, and then back to City College, and then maybe you'd learn to pull yourself up and not expect everybody to do everything.
Lady Bird is Greta Gerwig's first solo-directed, solo-written movie, and it's beautiful. Lady Bird is the title character. Her real name is Christine, but she names herself Lady Bird. It's her last year in high school. She goes to a Catholic high school, and she just feels very dissatisfied with her life. She does not get on very well with her mom at all, and she has all these expectations of, oh, when I get off into the world and when I leave here, everything is going to be great. Now that I'm an adult, everything is going to be awesome, and spoiler alert, it's actually not that awesome. And what this movie does for me when it's over is it just makes me not want to take anything in my life for granted. Right now I'm in this house, and for me it's just the house I live in, and you kind of take it for granted. But one of these days I'm probably going to really miss this house, and the things that are really great in your life are often the things you don't appreciate until it's too late. And so this movie makes me not want to take anything for granted in my life. That's one of the reasons I love it. I laugh, I cry, it moves me. Especially at the end, it really moves me. And I've seen it several times. I enjoy it every time. Lady Bird is a 5 out of 5 movie. Little Women.
I'm working on a novel. It is a story of my life and my sister's.
Make it short and spicy. And if the main character is a girl, make sure she's married by the end.
Ow, Joe! This is a really tricky movie for me to talk about just because I've had such different reactions to it every time I watched it. When I saw it in theaters, I liked it a lot. I gave it a 4 out of 5 when I first saw it. And on repeat viewings, it's kind of gone down for me. My kind of appreciation for it has gone up intellectually, but how much it emotionally resonates with me has just kind of gone down. The hardest part is probably that I'm very fond of the 1994 version with Winona Ryder. And, well, more specifically, the first half of that movie, I think is really great. All of a sudden, there's this big time jump in the middle, and all the characters are older, and it just none of that is very interesting after that. And so it's kind of become our Christmas tradition to watch just the first half of the 1994 Little Women. I'll say this about Gerwig's version. It made me understand why the story is called Little Women, because you kind of have the childhood story and the adult story. And to me, the adult story always felt very thrown in to the 94 version. It just seemed like, what is this? And like it just seemed like the bonus features or something. The movie feels like it's about to end, and then instead of giving us a proper ending, it does this whole other thing. Anyway, the Gerwig version, you get it. You've got the childhood storyline and the adult storyline, and she's constantly cutting back and forth and showing you how this led to that, etc. And that made a lot more sense to me, and I found that really intellectually interesting. But emotionally, it made it more difficult to kind of get invested. The thing that makes it intellectually really interesting is also the thing that makes it kind of emotionally frustrating. So mixed feelings on Little Women. I think it all comes together pretty well, nicely at the end. The ending really comes together really well. But overall, I will give Little Women a 3.5 out of 5. And finally, that brings us to Barbie, the first kind of $100 million blockbuster that Greta Gerwig's ever been involved with.
Hey, Barbie. Can I come to your house tonight?
Sure. I don't have anything big planned, just a giant blowout party with all the Barbies and planned choreography and a bespoke song. You should stop by.
So cool.
You can find me under the lights.
If you're a listener of Talking Beast, the Narnia podcast, and NarniaWeb.com, you already know pretty much how I feel about the movie, so I'll be pretty quick. But basically, definitely entertaining. Got my money's worth out of this movie. Laughed several times. I thought the design was really fun. And Margot Robbie is great. Just threads that needle perfectly of being cheesy, but not too cheesy. Just finds just that line with that character. Ryan Gosling is just a joy to watch. Just so funny. So I enjoyed myself, but I really found myself waiting for something real. The movie this reminded me the most of was The Emperor's New Groove. The kind of fourth wall breaking and the self-parody. The major difference being that Emperor's New Groove, a lot of it is a farce, but then it has the ability to be emotionally real and have real stakes when it wants to be. Barbie, to me, never felt like it had real stakes. It was all just a big joke. It was all just a big farce. Until the very end, they tried to make it real. And to me, at that point, it wasn't bad or anything, but it was just kind of too little too late for me to invest. So that was a little bit frustrating. I do think there's a layer of humor here that a lot of people are missing out on. A lot of people say there's no subtlety in this movie at all. The subtext is just the text. I totally get it, because it is all very, as a script, it's all very on the nose, and here's what we're saying. And they're talking about issues that a lot of people have a lot of passionate opinions about. What I think a lot of people are missing out on is that's sort of part of the satire, that there is a certain view the movie is pushing, but it's doing so in such an over-the-top, exaggerated way that's kind of making fun of itself a little bit by saying, this is the solution to all of society's problems. It's so simple. By saying that so loud and clear, they're saying, no, it's not actually that simple. For me, it was enjoyable, if a bit lacking emotionally. And once again, I'm going to give Barbie a 3.5 out of 5. So I guess that brings us to Narnia. In the back of my mind, watching a lot of these, I was kind of trying to find something that would be, okay, what if she brought that to Narnia? Kind of a clue. And yeah, I didn't really see much. She's definitely an interesting choice. I guess the only thing I can think of is, she does these kind of slice of life dramas, some things I feel very down to earth, very real. And she tends to get the details right. Her characters feel real. And what I've always said about the characters in Narnia is the way Lewis makes them feel so real, despite them not being very elaborately developed, is he gets the details right. Just little things like the fact that when Lucy is reading the magician's book in Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and she has this moment of, do I want the door open or do I want the door closed? And that just seems like it's not the thing you're probably going to remember after reading the book. But it makes that character in that moment feel really real. Like Lewis gets the details, what few details he does include about his characters. It's like, oh yeah, I relate to that. That makes them feel real. And Gerwig has a talent for doing that as well. But yeah, overall, as an Narnia fan, it seems like kind of a strange choice. I'm kind of, I would not have predicted that. As a film fan in me, and this is kind of maybe where there's a bit of a tension, because the film fan in me goes, well, yeah, that is weird. She hasn't done a fantasy movie. Cool. That makes me excited to see a Greta Gerwig fantasy movie. What's that going to look like? As much as she's an auteur and has a fairly distinct style and a lot of themes that run through her work, she's never done anything like this before. Joe Johnston, who was going to direct a Silver Tree movie, didn't pan out. It just seemed like a very studio choice. Okay, he's done some other movies with a lot of visual effects. Oh, he designed the Millennium Falcon. Cool. I guess let's give him Narnia. Whereas Gerwig doesn't. Gerwig isn't the super obvious choice. And that's the thing that kind of gets me excited, I guess. That's the main thing I'm feeling. It's the fact that she's not an obvious choice. I think that means there's a creative spark making this decision. I think Greta Gerwig must have come to Netflix and said, I want to do this. I know it doesn't make sense, but I want to do this. And that's how creativity works sometimes. Who would have ever guessed that the director of Meet the Feebles or Bad Taste would make such an awesome Lord of the Rings adaptation? And yet Peter Jackson did. I do think if you're a purist, which is not a bad thing, that word often has kind of a negative connotation to it. That's not what I intend. But if you're a purist, you're probably not going to like Gerwig's version. I think she will do something that's not just kind of a stand-in or an avatar for the original, which most adaptations are in one way or another intended to be. She'll make something that's in dialogue with the original. And what exactly does that mean? I want to give that some more thought. But like her version of Little Women starts with a shot of the Little Women book with Alcott's name on it and everything, which tells you right away, oh, this is a movie that's kind of outside it's taking a look at the original. It's not just a new version of the original. Regardless, I think she'll make something that is worth talking about afterward. Barbie and Little Women, as much as I have kind of mixed feelings about them and I only gave them a 3.5, I talked about them for days afterwards. You can't just walk out of those movies and just, okay, I'll get lunch and move on. You kind of have to work through some things. And what did that scene mean there? Or what do you think the movie was saying with that? And so I think good or bad, I think she will give us Narnia movies that are worth talking about. And that is, has that really happened with the other Narnia movies? I thought Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and Prince Caspian were pretty good movies, decent adaptations, I guess. And I personally think if I hadn't read the book, I would have gone to see them and said, well, that was pretty good, I guess. And I would have left and probably forgotten about them. So for better or worse, I think Greta Gerwig will give us Narnia adaptations that are worth talking about afterwards and that is going to start some kind of cultural conversation. And I'm also excited about just a whole new audience is going to be taking a look at Narnia that otherwise would have no interest in Narnia, just because it's a Greta Gerwig movie. I'm not just talking about general audiences, although that is certainly a factor. Barbie just made $1 billion, so Narnia is going to get a way more attention than it would have otherwise because of that alone. But I'm just talking like the film festival kind of crowd, and real cinephiles are going to be watching Narnia and taking it seriously as a piece of art. That doesn't automatically make it a good movie, but I am excited about that. In researching Greta Gerwig, I'm looking for things that might give us clues about why she's interested in Narnia. I did come across some really interesting quotes. Greta Gerwig took 4 years of theology at a Catholic school in Sacramento. And in an interview, she said, "I always have some religious story threaded underneath that people can pick up on or not pick up on. I don't need them to, but it helps me as an organizing principle. Because even if you don't believe in the stories, they are very old stories, and they do speak really deeply to people and their psychologies and how they deal with life." She also recently in an interview talked about some biblical elements that kind of shaped her creative process for Barbie as well. So obviously Narnia has a religious story threaded underneath, and so you can see where if that's a really fundamental part of her creative process, that's where she might be attracted to Narnia. So overall, man, as you can see, I'm really mixed on this. I think I'm mainly just feeling excited. You know, there's the, wow, she seems like a really weird choice for Narnia on one hand, and then there's she's a really good filmmaker, and she made Lady Bird, and the idea of her doing a fantasy movie seems really interesting, and that kind of unknown, what are we going to get? I think that's the direction that's the way I'm leaning right now, is just excitement about an interesting filmmaker being attached. Whether or not the results are going to be the Narnia movie we all want, I don't know. I kind of doubt, but whatever happens, it'll be something worth talking about afterwards. So we'll see.